I'm the first one to do that. I bet you never knew that. Back like a tailbone. Who you got the tail on? If it ain't about me, about whole D, about face. If you ain't on higher, learn it. The soda in the pot and the fire, burn it. This shit is so dope. You might wanna be my guest. This shit is so dope. You might wanna be my.
First of all, this is a big shout out to Hannah Strode. This is a big shout out to you, girl, for sending me this anime. You know exactly what I like. Oh, man, this anime was crazy. Jesus Christ. Let's get on with it. Bastard is a fantasy action OVA, and man, it's a twisted one that has been made by Let's try that again. Bastard is a damn. Let's try that again. Bastard is an action fantasy OVA that has been made by AIC and Pioneer. It has been released in North America in the year 1998. Man, that was a long time ago. I was a kid when that anime was released. I am getting old. How old am I now? Don't worry about it. Aww. A group of four lords plan to set the old god free once again. To prevent this from happening, a former ally from the four is released from the 15-year of imprisonment.
In an age of darkness.
May God have mercy upon your souls. Something's wrong, something's amiss.
And a time of evil.
You shall die!
Honestly, I've never heard about this anime until recently. I own a lot of animes. I've seen a lot of animes in my younger timeline. Even animes that I was not ready to watch because of my age. It's a good thing I have not seen Bastard when it was released, because it would have really blown me away. And I'm saying that because by me watching it now, I was still like overwhelmed of just how much of this anime has thrown everything at me in this 2-hour and 50-minute OVA. This is one of the longest OVAs I have ever freaking seen. And I don't know what kicked in more, the fact that I wasn't ready for all these elements that this anime has thrown at me, because this anime is based on back in those not Gladiator, but those Dungeons and Dragon times. And if you are aware of shows like Spartacus, Game of Thrones, or just anything that can replicate to that, it is known for a lot of violence, blood and gore, sexual references, sexual context, all those things. Because if you're going to be about those times, you have to be about the realization of how those can relate to what we are watching. I don't know if I was unaware of that, or the fact that I had my girlfriend watching that with me, but we was able to cling on to what it was going to throw at us, because I showed her Berserk. I showed her the original Berserk series, because by her being 26 years old, I wanted her to literally go into my mindset of how I was as a child watching animes from back then, just to differentiate of new generation anime and old generation anime, of just how easily they can add things on here instead of having certain cultures and agendas pushing away these things. I love Bastard. This is a damn good anime. Is it one of those animes that's a hidden gem? Yes. And I'm actually surprised no one has ever talked about this anime. Or at least not enough people. The anime picks up at a very fair pace, to the point where before they show you everything that is going to be thrown at you, what it's known for, they give us an introduction method where we are introduced to certain little hidden enemies that has their own little propagandas of what they want to do. Some want to rule the world, some want to rule the kingdom, some want to destroy the planet, and some of them team up together and make that happen by summoning demons, devil bats, ghouls, freaking... It's a Dungeons and Dragons anime, so of course they got dragons. And we are introduced with a narration of Steve Dixon. Now, I was surprised. Now, if people don't know Steve Dixon, he is also the narrator from one of my favorite animes of all time, Fist of the North Star. When I've heard his voice, I was like, wow. I I was like, Jesus Christ, you're sending me back 25 years, dude. It was so good to hear Steve Dixon's voice again. And it just made me not only make me like the anime to a certain extent to hear his voice, but it made me be more curious of what's going to happen. Because when you hear Steve Dixon's voice, how dark and sinister his voice is, you know it has to be some dark and sinister shit that's going to happen. And I was right. Because after you hear his introduction, this is when they show the whole village getting ransacked, getting overrun, getting destroyed by all these demons, all these ghouls, all these dragons, just killing people, taking people down, killing the soldiers, cutting their heads off, ripping out their intestines, taking their women. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is freaking crazy. Not even 10 minutes, not even 7 minutes, not even 5 minutes into the anime, we are introduced of the gore aspect of this project that I was not ready for. Even Berserk didn't do that bullshit. Only thing that Berserk did was to show you Gus' perspective of how he was after the whole aspect. But they didn't go this far. They didn't go this far yet. And I think that was a good thing because I was not ready for this shit at all. I was like, holy fuck, man. I gotta get a breath. But by showing this whole entire scene, this is when they begin to give us an introduction of the characters and side characters, or just characters that's going to try to defend the people and give us more variation of what they're going to do later into the project. Like Yoko and Luce's bond, their character, their chemistry was not just good and heartwarming to the point where I was beginning to feel their bond and their attachment to their characters, but they lead us into the whole entire project for us to be introduced to more characters on their journey. Like Yoko. Yoko is basically Ruche's overlooker. And what I mean by that is, by her being older, by her being, the older female, Ruche is a young kid, so she looks after him, she takes care of him, she makes sure that he is not in danger, and above all, she puts him in his place, because by animes having children involved, it's like me watching horror movies or just movies in general, where it's like thriller, certain violent scenes that has to be introduced, and majority of times kids are the trigger of the plot to drive it. And I hate that shit. It is lacking creativity. And I was actually a little on a 50-50 stiff side of seeing Ruche's character, because I like Yoko. Yoko was all about common sense. And when she was in the village, when it was getting ransacked and being overrun by these demons and dragons, she was trying to get the hell up out of there. And she was trying to find Ruche. And I was thinking to myself, this kid better not do nothing fucking stupid. I was going to hate this kid, because I was like, okay, this anime is doing good with the common sense. It was doing good with the pacing. It was doing good with the execution. It was doing good with all this other stuff. If you're going to show me a kid, it better not kill my interest in this anime. I am very fucking hard when it comes to this type of bullshit. But they did not do that at all. Ruche's character is not just a character that is on the balance of common sense and him being a child that I can relate to, because I was a badass kid too. But he is a relatable character, and I actually end up liking his character more than anticipated. As I explained with Yoko's character, this is where the balancing comes in when it comes to their chemistry, because she loves Ruche so much. But there are times when Ruche's character, he is a smart character, witty character, but at the same time, he's a kid. He is a young kid, so he's mostly looked after. But there are times where he would do things that would break the fourth wall, as in him doing certain perverted things that he does not know what he's doing. Like there were some times where he would take Yoko's clothes and wash them, especially her underwear. She would look for them, and he would have them in his back pocket, or he would just show them off to her and just grab them in certain areas, and it would make her cringe, it would make her mad, and she would literally beat the shit out of him to the point where he would begin to be, in a sense, meant to be like, you know what, I fucked up, I'm sorry. And what I like about humor animes like this is that when characters be exposed on this type of behavior, Yoko would actually look at the screen sometimes to see if anybody saw the whole thing. A good fourth wall breakage of animes like this that's ahead of its time. I like that shit. And it had me and my girlfriend ask a question as if, did they do that intentionally to make us think that these characters are aware that audience is watching this shit? If that's the case, I think that's a pretty good method. And I'm surprised a lot of animes don't do that anymore. That break the fourth wall. Yeah. A lot of old animes have kids that is kind of provocative, that is kind of perverted. They do that a lot with those old school animes back then. They don't do that now because of freaking censorship, freaking feminism, freaking agendas is ruining animes, taking away creativity, and adding a lot of dry things that make not only these animes be missable, but they also be relatable to when it comes to a sprinkle bit of their creativity being thrown in there and being called masterpieces. That's the reason why I always review mostly old animes on my channel. Soon after that, when Yoko and Ruche is leaving and trying to evacuate, we're introduced to Yoko's father. Now, if you think Ruche is perverted, you should check out Yoko's father. Yoko's father, he is a kind-hearted person too. He actually looks after Yoko, because by him being the prince, by him being one of the major swordsmen of his whole entire army, he literally makes sure that she's not in danger, and if she is, how can she survive? But he is an old perverted motherfucker, dude. I don't mind him being perverted, but by him doing that to his own daughter, I'm like, what the hell is this? Now this is what you call uncomfortable humor. This is what you call cringe humor. And people that watch old animes can agree with me on this method, because we see a lot of that here. And again, new animes don't do that anymore because they don't have the balls to pull it off. It's good to see animes back then that gives us a breath of fresh air. I like Yoko's father. He's a cool dude, but goddamn, they was really pushing the envelope with his whole entire character arc. Soon we get enough introduction with these characters. This is when things begin to collide as the village is beginning to get ransacked even more, and this is when the odds get stacked against them as hell is about to break loose. We get introduced to Princess Sheila. That is the princess of this entire village. Now her character was great. It was good. Her character, now don't get me wrong, she can hold her own, but she can't defeat these demons on her own. She can fight, she can do certain maneuvers that even made me feel like, wow, that's a pretty badass character in the later in the project. But it was so many demons, so many things going on with the village to the point where she needed help. And this is where we begin to see the whole counterbalance of this anime begin to go to a whole new level. After we are shown these characters and after the anime begins to show us the whole entire pacing begin to pay off when things begin to get stacked against them, this is when they show us the main character himself, which is Dark Schneider. Now, Dark Schneider was summoned. He was summoned out of a forced will when it comes to Yoko kissing Ruche, because he was stuck inside him, and all it took was a kiss of a virgin, which is Yoko's character. Now, this is where the whole mixture of Shazam and Snow White comes in. And I thought that was pretty cool. I thought that was cool to have a male character having a grown, over the top, powerful bastard being inside of an infant, and all it takes is a kiss from a virgin to make that happen. And when they summon Dark Schneider, this is where the whole anime begins to take a very big toll of just us thinking that it wouldn't show enough. Thinking that it would show enough of the scenes that was already introduced to us. This is where it shows even more. By introducing us to Dark Schneider's character, I loved his character. His character is bold, his character is witty, his character is fucking cocky as hell. But that's because by him not only being into this shell for so much of a long damn time, this guy is very freaking powerful. He is a powerful dark wizard that a lot of people want dead. A lot of ghouls, a lot of dark princes, a lot of dark emperors want him dead. And not only that he was summoned to help protect the whole kingdom, he has some agendas on his own, which is why he decided to help out some people to claim certain things as his. Not into the way where he's a bad guy, but he's mostly an anti-hero. We've seen this happen a lot when it comes to projects like this. We see a character that is summoned and he has very bad intentions, but when he is surrounded by good people that wants to change him, he suddenly ends up changing, and we suddenly begin to understand and see where his character is coming from. But as we get introduced to this whole entire method of Dark Schneider's character, we begin to be aware of just what has conjured up after he is summoned. Because even though he is summoning people out, and he's just taking down anybody that stands in his way, it also has summoned up Pandora's box to give us even more deadlier enemies that's going to be in the way in the future. Like this warrior named Gaara. Now, when I first seen Gaara's character, I liked his character. His character was more like of Dark Snyder's rival, because they even explained that he killed him at one point and he thought he was dead, but he's back now and he's even more stronger and he is more agile and he is more wittier and he is more sophisticated of him holding his own in battle. He has troops of his own, but he wanted to fight Dark Snyder on his own terms. And they did a good pacing of Gara's character to the point where I ended up knowing and I ended up understanding his whole motivations. And he didn't really feel like a bad guy to me. And it was very good pacing to his character arc. But what really threw me away and threw Sabrina away, remember when I told you that we've both seen Berserk? He looks a lot like Guts. And we thought this was Guts. I mean, look at his character and look at Guts' character. We freaking thought that was Guts. And we thought this was a freaking spinoff. We was like, wait, is this based on the Berserk timeline? This is awesome. But the way how Gar was acting, the way how it's like day and night. Because if you've seen Berserk, then you can be aware of how Guts' character is. He is a quiet person. He only cares about just trying to get what's his. He has some caring moments, but the further the story goes, the more darker he gets. This was not Guts at all. This Guts, I mean, Gara was a very, very talkative person. At that point alone, we knew that wasn't Guts. We was like, no, But goddamn, he looked too much like him. Not only that this project shows powerful enemies to try to overcome Dark Snyder's character, but they also show these arcs, these pasts, these so-called flashbacks of these enemies that not only make us understand where they're coming from, but it actually takes the enemy label away from them and makes us feel like, man, these are really not really that bad. These are not really bad guys. These are just people that came to a certain area, and Dark Snyder, by him used to being a bad guy, he took what was there. He killed certain people that they related to, and above all, he was actually attached to a couple of characters that end up betraying each other when it comes to a very, very big personal disagreement. And it led me to be in the collision course of when they was beginning to fight and when they was beginning to settle their differences, especially when it came to a life and death battle. I did not know who to root for because of their character. Their character progression was so freaking relatable and so freaking well done. I did not know. Like I was like, oh man, I hope he don't die. I hope he does die, but I hope he doesn't get killed off pretty quickly. I was like, man, I hate it when animes and projects do this, where the character, the character arc is so freaking amazing. By this being a very, 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 very long OVA, 2 hours and 50 minutes. You damn right the pacing has had to been necessary. And not only that, they have done well here when it comes to the pacing. Like I mentioned, they have added so many good varieties of this project to get you pulled in. If you like action, they got that here. You like violence, they got that here. You like blood and gore in a weird way, they got that here too. Like I said, people will get their limbs cut off, they get their heads chopped off, whatever. There's so much blood and gore to the point where you will be satisfied in all angles. They got good crude humor. They got so much context. They got so much sexual context on here. This is a Dungeons and Dragons mature anime for mature audiences for a freaking reason. They have got so much good mixtures of varieties of what makes animes not for children for a good reason. Any motherfucker that still says that animes is just cartoons and they watch an anime like this, you anime fans out here have my permission to fuck their ass up verbally. Watching this project in English was enjoyable. I was shocked how much I was enjoying this in English. Is it perfect? No. I highly recommend you guys watching this in Japanese, but you are going to miss Steve Dix's narration, unfortunately. Watch this in English, then watch this in Japanese. They're good in both aspects, but if you want to feel the full context of this anime's potential, then you have to, it's like a double-edged sword, man. It's like a double-edged sword. Watch it both in English and Japanese. As we are introduced to these characters, these side characters, and these enemies that soon becomes Dark Snyder's rivals, they showed a lot of good pacing to the side characters, but with Dark Snyder's character, there was missing one thing about him, his emotion. Does he feel love? Does he feel some type of innovations towards other characters instead of just getting what's his? those questions was actually answered into the third half of the project when he is introduced to another character that is not going to test him out when it comes to his strength and his probability, but also towards his heart of how he really was as him being a caring and a lovable person. Like Nay Arshay, the black elf that is easily the sex appeal of this anime, the mature sex appeal of this anime. Nay Arshay, man, when I was looking at her, it made me not look at her too much because I had my girlfriend sitting right next to me. Nay Arshay, goddamn. Now, she was one of the love interests of Dark Snyder. And before things got bad, they had a very good connection. They had a very good bond and very good chemistry with each other because Dark Snyder was the one that brought her in, took care of her, taught her everything that he knows about survival and just to hold her own when it comes to her being under pressure. But ever since they had a personal disagreement, it just led them to be in a big collision course to question the whole logic of them surviving on their own terms, and above all, are they going to stick together when it comes to them selling their own differences? They fought to the death. They fought to the bitter end, and above all, they tried to fight to hold their emotions in. And this is when Dark Snyder's emotions was beginning to show the audience how he really felt towards people when it comes to him falling in love. They have done well with Dark Snyder's pacing of his character. They made us believe that he didn't care. They made us believe that he didn't give a fuck. They made us believe that he was a character that was just going to take what was his. But when these enemies came in, each of these enemies tested him out from a strength aspect, from an emotional aspect, from a caring aspect, and from a heartwarming aspect. And each of these enemies was not enemies. These was enemies that was here to just to test him out to see if you really like this, show me how are you. Show me how you are when it comes to me giving you my full frontal of me proving you that you're wrong. Dark Snyder was a strong character, but when it comes to him and his potential of his, of him hiding his true emotions, there were times where I would want him to really be honest. And they have done that well here with the pacing of his character. And by saying that, we are introduced to the last half of the project where they show us the major enemy of them all. They gave us so much potential of every single character that tried to oppose Dark Snyder. So we are introduced to Abigail, the strongest, the deadliest, the most diabolical enemy of all, to the point where Dark Snyder couldn't defeat him on his own. He needed people to help him out in this journey, and even then the stakes was pretty high, to the point where there was so much times where I really feared for these characters' lives as if they was going to get killed off. And by saying that, Abigail is no joke. He is no pushover. And it made me believe his integrity, but it did not make me believe his motivations. And the reason why I'm saying that is because we had so much pacing with every other character, but Abigail, he was barely on the freaking screen, and when he was in the screen, he mostly laughed. He talked about his ambitions, but they never really gave me no innovation of why he was doing these things. And the reason why I wanted that was because, again, you showed a lot of these innovations in these relations to all these other characters, and the pacing was great and phenomenal. But the major enemy, the major threat, the major honcho, he doesn't really get any of that much. All I felt was that he was a threat, but not a relatable threat. And that was not good when it comes to a project like this that I was expecting more from, especially from an enemy that can really kill off the whole entire cast. Overall, this anime was a very, very enjoyable one. I enjoyed it from start to finish. And the way how the anime ended gave me some good closure, but to the point where they did have like a continuation cliffhanger where it showed more enemies that was going to try to oppose Dark Snyder, and certain characters that was introduced that we want to see more of. So yeah, not only did I enjoy this project, but I am also on board to watch the future series that was just released pretty recently. I'm gonna have to give Bastard an A. I really hope that the newer project was good. I don't know if it's done, but again, just like the original one, no one has really talked about Bastard that much. So I have to probably see for myself to see how this one is. Normally when it comes to new generation animes based off the original, just like Berserk, they have not really done well when it comes to continuation of appealing to their original audiences. I just hope that Bastard did not fall into that same loop. But until that fateful day, that's all I have to say for today. Please stay tuned for my upcoming reviews and videos headed your way. This is Hugo, your critic teacher, and you guys have a good day.